Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker. Why do I keep talking about those stars when we have guys like Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins? It's because of the impact those legends left on the industry that is still felt to this very day. They have influenced the current generation, and much of what you see today is inspired by the new generation era. The in-ring stuff was good, but it was the storylines that paved the way for the future. So without wasting any more time, let's revisit some of those legendary and compelling storylines that definitely deserve the praise. Let's get into it. Number 5. Bret Hart vs. Shawn Michaels. Talk about one of those feuds that translated into real-life heat. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had similar career paths. The two began their careers as tag team superstars and went on to have solid singles careers. A feud between the two seemed imminent, considering both men were magicians inside the squared circle. Both claimed to be the best. They came face to face when Bret defended his WWE Championship against Shawn in a 60-minute Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. While many of you might say that you have seen better Iron Man matches, there's no denying that both men had one of the best main events in Mania history. However, it was what happened in 1997 that escalated this real-life feud. The original plan for WrestleMania 13 was for Michaels to drop the belt back to Hart. However, a knee injury forced Michaels to vacate the title. Hart didn't buy it. He believed that Michaels wasn't that severely injured and was doing all of this just so he couldn't take a loss to Hart. Both men took shots at each other on live television, and it was all real. Long story short, Hart signed with WCW, and by the time we got to Survivor Series 1997, Hart refused to drop his WWE Championship to Shawn. Bret told Vince that he would forfeit the title, but would never lose to Michaels. This is how the infamous Montreal Screwjob came to life. Things didn't work out that smoothly, but you can't deny that this is one of the most talked about storylines of all time. This will remain in the conversation for years to come, and new fans will definitely take a look at this rivalry that ended Bret's career in WWE. Expect to hear more of Bret in the video later on. Number 4. The Undertaker vs. Mankind. When people talk about the best rivals of The Undertaker's career, they mostly talk about Shawn Michaels and Triple H. That's because those two stars have given the dead man some of his best matches ever at WrestleMania. However, most people sleep on Mankind. You could say that Mankind gave The Undertaker his first proper feud in WWE. When The Undertaker debuted all those years ago, he suffered from a lack of credible opponents. He had no solid rival. That all changed the night of WrestleMania 12 when Mankind made his WWE debut. He absolutely felt like a threat to The Undertaker, and the two would go on to have a solid program. Two stars with unique and unnerving gimmicks coming after each other like maniacs. What could you ask for more? Mankind established himself as a credible opponent when he defeated The Undertaker in their first televised match at King of the Ring in 1996. Things got more interesting when Paul Bearer turned on The Undertaker and aligned himself with Mankind at SummerSlam. Even though the feud was great, it was the kind of matches that they had that warranted this feud on this list. Matches like the Boiler Room Brawl and Buried Alive were great, but it was their Hell in a Cell match from the King of the Ring in 1998 that we all love even to this day. Yes, that match technically took place in the Attitude Era, but if it wasn't for the New Generation era, we would have never gotten this beautiful storyline. Bret Hart vs. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin might be remembered for taking WWE to new heights during the Attitude Era, but if he hadn't been in a storyline with Bret Hart in 1997, then I don't think we would have gotten that version of Stone Cold in the Attitude Era. Austin became the top guy when he cut that phenomenal promo at the King of the Ring in 1996. For the next many weeks, Steve taunted Bret and called him out for a match. The two had a super underrated classic at Survivor Series of that same year, which Hart won. Austin, however, wasn't done with Hart. Steve went on to win the Royal Rumble match in 1997. However, he was eliminated during the match by Hart, but the officials never saw it. He re-entered himself into the match and eliminated Hart to win the Royal Rumble. Austin got his world title shot at In Your House 13 Final 4 pay-per-view, which he lost. Bret then turned his attention to Steve, and the two met one more time at WrestleMania 13. Thank God we didn't get that rematch with Shawn Michaels. We got this banger instead. A 5-star no disqualification submission banger. A rare double turn occurred when Austin refused to give up and the crowd got behind him. Bret turned heel when he continued to beat down Austin after the match. A fantastic storyline that paved the way for the Attitude Era, just like this next rivalry. For more on this double turn, check out my other videos highlighting some of the most memorable double turns in WWE history. Number 2. Steve Austin vs. Brian Pillman. Now you must be wondering, why did I place this storyline above Steve's feud with Hart? It's quite simple. This was the feud that told WWE that it needed to air more mature programming in order to compete and beat WCW in the ratings. Before he began his feud with Hart, Steve turned his attention to Pillman. Steve broke Bryan's ankle, in storyline of course. When Bryan praised the hell out of Hart in front of Steve, Steve was not done with Bryan. This led to a controversial segment between the two where Steve broke into Bryan's home and Bryan pulled out a gun to protect himself. Bryan cursed at Steve and none of the F-bombs were censored. This was so controversial that the USA Network was furious at the company. However, this segment created a lot of buzz and the fans loved every second of it. They wanted more segments and angles like this, and this is how WWE realized that it needed to move away from the family-oriented TV show and be more mature. This feud, while it was short, is the reason why WWE moved from the New Generation era to the Attitude Era. Number 1. Owen Hart vs. Bret Hart. Possibly the greatest brother versus brother rivalry ever. Bret was quite possibly the best worker of the New Generation era, and this was one of the reasons why Owen was overshadowed by the success Bret achieved. It was clear that Bret was going to be the top guy in the company, and Owen was going to remain in the shadow of his brother. Owen began to show his heel side in late 1993, and eventually turned on Bret at the 1994 Royal Rumble event. Owen blamed Bret for holding him down, and the two went on to have the greatest opening match in WrestleMania history at WrestleMania 10. They had another classic in the form of a steel cage match at SummerSlam of that very year. This was without a doubt the greatest feud of the New Generation era, and while we know how great Bret was, we found out that Owen was equally great and had the potential to be a top guy. It sucks that he couldn't win the WWE Championship before his untimely death. Did I miss any of your favorite storylines from the New Generation era? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe for more.